Hello, welcome to the DEI Consortium Lowell Candidate Spotlight. My name is Sue Kim, and I am a resident of Lowell, and I am the co-chair of the DEI Consortium Lowell's Communications Committee. The DEI Consortium Lowell is a grassroots organization of community members whose mission is to dismantle racism, amplify unheard voices, and lead impactful action for a just and equitable Lowell. And the purpose of the DEI Candidate Spotlight is to provide an opportunity for you to hear from candidates for Lowell City Council and School Committee, particularly about their track records and priorities around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tonight, we are spotlighting two candidates who will be in tomorrow's preliminary election. Paul Ratha Yem, who is running for City Council in District 7, and then John Leahy, who is currently mayor, who is running for City Council in District 3. And if you want to double check your district, you can go to lowellma.gov/find my district. So first, thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to ask the people in the Zoom, if you're not speaking, to please mute yourself. So the format for today will be the same as we do every week. We will have the candidates introduce themselves and talk about who they are, why they're running, and their track records, experiences, and priorities around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then we will revisit the 2021 Racism is a Public Health Crisis letter and have the candidates respond to that. And then we will open it up to Q&A. So for the people in the Zoom, please feel free to enter questions into the Zoom, into the chat. But first, I'd like to introduce Paul Ratha Yem.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kim, and thanks for the DEI's work. And it's very critical. And I wish that, we have DEI back 30 years ago. My name is Paul Ratha Yem. I came to America as a refugee. I was adopted by an American family living in San Bernardino, California. And I volunteer working with the local that they need a Cambodian caseworker, work with the Cambodian refugees that arrive right away at the opportunity without knowing how cold Massachusetts is and know nothing about it. So I drove across the country. The associate pastor of the Congregational Church have their office in Malden. So I became a caseworker to help the Cambodian refugees arriving into Massachusetts and a few resettlement agency, and I work with this resettlement agency, and we settle Cambodian refugee in Revere. So combat racism and hatred toward Cambodian in Revere back in 81. I came to Lowell after I left the working with the Attorney General's office in the Civil Rights Division. I got a job offer here in Lowell, work for Lowell Institution for Saving as a community outreach, reach out to Cambodian refugee that start new life here in the city of Lowell, open businesses, purchase home, things like that. So I came for the bank briefly, and then also later 60 Middlesex Street. I was intrigued because we focus on community development, building affordable housing at number 60 Middlesex Street in Lowell, next to Washington Savings Bank. It was a abandoned building, so Cambodian American League converted that into a 24 affordable apartment, and then 5 businesses on the ground level. And we also offer micro enterprise training, helping people start businesses, and also first-time home buyer. So I left after we built 24 units and grand opening in the building is open. And then I left and then become a full-time a real estate. That's kind of in the line that I do. So I met my wife who lived on Mount Vernon Street, and we've been living here, and she's been living here with her family for the past 30 years. My wife went to Bartlett School and Lowell, and then she graduated from UMass Lowell with the business degree. I graduated from UMass Boston with the community planning, working full time and go to school part time. Our kids, we have 4 children, 2 older girls. They went through the same public school, and now we have two boys who are teenagers now, went through all of that. And I have a real estate office. This is a great opportunity for the first time that the city divided into districts, and I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute with my experience in public safety, in a community development, in affordable housing and businesses to help and build, help the small businesses to leverage the state, city, state, federal, and also help other businesses to locate to the acres. I'm proud to say that I was instrumental in bringing tasty dumpling at 351 Market Street. If you haven't tried it, I will encourage you to. They are really well known in Miami, Florida. So they're looking to come this way, and I was able to convince them to start here. And next to it, it used to be Southeast Asian restaurant, and now it's going to be Gourmet Breakfast. They located at East Merrimack Street, and now they're going to move at 347 Market Street next to Tasty Dumpling. So these are the type of experience that I want to bring to help the acre. The acre also need affordable housing. There's a lot of people unable to afford the rent. The rent is so high, as everybody knows. And to help them by working with developers to build affordable housing, maybe contribute a certain units for affordable housing. Oftentimes when I say affordable housing, the critic out there say, well, you bring the poor to the neighborhood. That's not true. Affordable housing, meaning that it's for a young couple, they just start out, so they unable to buy a home yet. So they need an apartment that is affordable with their income as a starter. I remember those days when we start out the same. Also, I like to work to part of the community development, making the neighborhood, street cleaner, sidewalk, street, and maybe with some lightings in the area of the highland, in the acre, because the acre does not have, if you go to Salem Street, at the end at corner Bauer Street, and the street are not clean and trash all over and parking as well. So I would like to work and to improve the neighborhood and bring back, these program to help beautify the neighborhood, and maybe working with the police to build a relationship, as I have done in my job at the Executive Office of Public Safety, as well as the Attorney General's office. So I have that experience working with law enforcement. So I'm told that I have 5 minutes, so I think I probably went over a little bit. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. So we're going to turn quickly to our 2020 letter to the city. The Racism is a Local Public Health Crisis. Over 1,500 individuals and community organizations in Lowell signed on to this letter, essentially calling on the city to recognize the extent to which systemic racism is impacting the health of individuals and the community as a whole. And the letter calls for 5 steps, 5 sort of action items, right? And none of these are, I think, very I mean, honestly, very radical, right? One is to articulate and communicate the city's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion much more clearly in its websites and its public materials. And this is something that the recent HR audit recommendations also reflected. Establishing protocols for data equity and integrity, mandating biannual anti-racism and anti-bias training, for all city employees, including the city council and the school committee, establishing an independent civilian advisory committee to work with the police, and then also to reallocate resources and to establish an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So what we'd love to hear, we've been asking all our candidates, is what are your thoughts on sort of your responses to the letter? Also, your thoughts on where the city has come since then and where it still needs to go?
I thank you for the option. I did look through the letter. So I want to say that I believe that that the racism is a public crisis. The reason I say that because I remember when I came to work as a caseworker for the Cambodian refugee, we put Cambodian family live on Shirley Ave in Revere. Right away, the Cambodian family were facing physical assault, facing threats and name calling. They were called, groups. They call every name that you can think of. And to the point that Cambodians' home apartment were firebombed. So I've been doing this since when I first came, and I mentioned to you that I was adopted by an American family living. So every opportunity I have, I would go. We have conferences, press conference like this, and talked about Cambodian refugee, the flight of Cambodian facing the killing field of Cambodia coming to America. So I've been to Cornell to speak as a young man. You may not recognize me. And then I also FSU, University of Florida, talked about Cambodian flight and all of that. And then I mentioned that, Cambodian family that came to Revere to live, to start their life, they from day one be subject to physical and racial calling and assault. And I remember so clearly in 1986, around Christmas Eve, back then, if there is any issue that deal with Cambodian in Revere, I would receive phone call from the police, from the fire department, from the Red Cross, because I'm the only one that speak the language. So I become the face of the Cambodian community. So now my role has changed from the caseworker to become an activist. A Cambodian family, two-family home on Shirley Ave was firebombed on a Christmas Eve of 1987. And the Red Cross called me, the police called me, the fire department called me. So after everything all taken care of, the Red Cross put the family in a temporary home, the fire put out, and I was standing in the middle of Shirley Ave on a Christmas Eve, now going into Christmas morning on about 1 a.m. on December 25th. I thought to myself, Christmas supposed to be a season where all goodwill toward men. So whoever did this must hate Cambodians so much that they want to drive them out of their home and in the city. Luckily, no one got hurt. They get out on time. So that my determination, I say enough is enough. So the next day I call out a few people, and then a few people call a few people. At the time, I was so grateful that the Attorney General's office and the Civil Rights Division worked with me and helped me and helped the community to fight this hatred. So on January 1987, we hold a big rally. Over 300 people show up, not just the community, but other organizations throughout Greater Boston. I don't know you remember the Rainbow Coalition that organized by Mel King, I believe that his name, came to Revere to give support to our cause and fight. So this is the kind of um, of hatred and racism that I've seen and I've been fighting for the past 30 years. And when I saw what happened to George Floyd, and after that, a lot, the killing of Asian women in Atlanta, Georgia, and a lot of uh, attack on Asian throughout the country that we saw on TV, remind me of 30 years ago, nothing has changed. So until all of us, recognize that racism still well and alive, and until all of us, put our effort together to stamp out this racism. And I appreciate DEI, what DEI tried to do. And my first priority, if I'm elected, I would like to create a task force in the city of Lowell. The city of Lowell has 28 commission and board. And if from anything, including the taxi, board, but I would like to create, a task force, one of the a committee, a board or commission that would also appointed members of various community, law enforcement, business community, religious leaders to come together. And this is to answer, this is the question number 5 that you put. So the commission will be tasked to collect all the data, to look at the policy of hiring. The city of Lowell, give some credit, have gone along, have done, gone a long way to increase diversity as far as the workforce and all of that in the city hall. But more need to be done. But I want to give credit to the city for trying to work harder. So now the district that we have election coming up will have various representatives from different neighborhoods. We come together. We work with these the task force at DEI. We can call commission or things like that. At first, before I knew DEI, my thought is that we should create a civil rights. We create a task force, on civil rights and things like that. So that's what. But then, if we create a DEI, all of that will be working in one, under one umbrella. So.
Thank you so much. That I think those are great ideas. So let's turn to some of the questions that we had submitted up for this session. One question that we had, COVID-19, I think this is a question that was submitted, showed us the reality of racial inequality that exists in many communities. And the city is working to reduce these negative situations. And you've spoken to some of this, but how would a strategic plan be able to stop these feelings, that, as you said, violate civil rights of people in Lowell, right? So essentially, I think the question is asking, what are some of the things, in addition, to a commission that the city council or that you as a city councilor could do in promoting, reducing racial inequality?
The racial inequality exists at different level. I think my proposal would be under the umbrella of the DEI commission that would ask the city, similar, you mentioned that, audit it and to see what has been done to reduce that, And then as a group, we come up together of action plan, a recommendation for various department, including the police department. In my role as a civil rights liaison for the Attorney General, we did civil rights training for the police department. Basically, what we tell the police department, in addition to sensitivity training, is also reduce their liability if being sued, So that's one of the things that we have done, and we have done it one in Lowell as well. Back then, this is 15, 20 years ago, the reception was less, but things have changed, and now we have a lot more younger, various various officer from various community. We have Cambodian, Laotian, Latino. We have some Black, people from Africa who also on the force. So now it's a time to bring that back. Work with the Attorney General's office, Civil Rights Division. Do the sensitive training, the civil rights training. So not just for the police department, the fire department, and maybe all the department. So for human resource, we have a different type of training for the human resource, because sometimes they think that they do the right thing, but sometimes you think they do the right thing, but it's the wrong way. They try to do the right thing the wrong way. So as part of the training, the various department, I think it helps a little bit to reduce that, so people feel they are included, that's pretty sensitive to that. And that's part of, I mentioned earlier, I would like to create more and expand the community policing. The community policing, basically, that's what I've been working with. I had worked with the previous David at Davis. He was the chief back then. Tom Riley was the Attorney General's office. Vesna worked for the DA, and I was from the Attorney General's office. So we have a collaboration. We meet monthly basis and we talk. Now it's a role of the DEI commission that work on it and meet on a regular basis, provide all that step and recommendation. I think that's where the direction I'd like to go.
Great, thank you so much. So we have a couple questions about the relationship of the city council to the schools. There's one sort of general question about what do you think is the responsibility of the city council, to our schools, right? What are the ways that essentially what is the relationship that you see between the city council and our schools? We also have a question that's more specifically about how the city council can help. If you're aware of the culturally and linguistically sustainable practices proposal that is currently at the Lowell Public Schools, which is essentially it's not really ethnic studies curriculum. It's really just sort of cultural sensitivity for teachers and school professionals, right? So if you could talk about your thoughts about how the city council's relationship or responsibility in relation to the schools.
The city council has very limited. The mayor, who representing all the city council, would sit on the school board as a chair. So we as a council, from what we collect from our constituents, our residents that we represent, we forward it to the mayor, who also on the board. I remember that each school has their own training. I remember attending one or two training in the city of Lowell. They bring all the teachers together. Someone from the Cambodian community talked a little bit about the Cambodian culture. The same as I talked to the chief of the police when I was at the Executive Office of Public Safety. I remember going to talk to the chief of the police in the Suffolk County. What I explained to the chief of police back then, say there are cultural differences that we perceive or translate differently. For example, we from Southeast Asia, that's elected official, we're not looking at the people of authority in the eye. So, for example, if a police pull an Asian person and then the police ask him the question, he may not look at the police officer in the eyes because it's a sign of respect. But our culture here, if you don't look me in the eye, you have something to hide, particularly law enforcement. So the officer might interpret that this guy might have something to hide. That's why he's not looking me in the eye. So the cultural differences like that, it helps. So I also talked to the school. I came to speak here at the parent meeting, or maybe teachers whatever they have a meeting on a monthly basis, they invite different people come to talk because there are a large number of Southeast Asian Cambodian came back in the mid 80s, in the late 80s. So they want to learn more about the Cambodians. So these are the kind of training that is under the umbrella of DEI, we could develop as a group, and then we then want to implement and give to the school and work with the school to implement this kind of training for a teacher, paraprofessional, but also have an opportunity to meet with the student, and the teacher there, and then talk about, and maybe the student can share their experience, things like that in school. My kids is in school, public school, Bartlett school. We went to Bartlett school and went to high school. There's a lot of issue. There's different culture that bring. Latino kids will have different perception of the Cambodian Asian culture. So there are way to interact, but now it's less than, I'm talking about like 20 years ago, but now kids are more integrated. They understand, they know each other, they hang out together and stuff like that. So by bringing more, the last thing that I see parent, but for Cambodian parents, they don't interact with school. They don't go to the school meeting, meet with the parent, like parent night. They don't go, because Cambodian culture is that I'm bringing my kids to your school and I give you the whole authority to do whatever you see fit for my son or my daughter, my kids. So, and then when you ask people come meet and talk, they say, you're the professional, why you ask me? You see, they don't understand that. So things have changed a bit, but there's more work need to be done. People from other countries the same way. They trust the teacher, they trust the educational system and things like that. So, but more need to be done. And my job as a counselor represent the district. I'm doing the walking and the talking and explain to people as I did. And nowadays people don't know that we have 8 districts, that now the people live in the acre can really truly elect their own representative, because before all the city councilors claim to represent everybody, but we say no, not true. So that's in a nutshell. So I hope touch on the question, both the first one and the second one. So
great, thank you. We have a great question here about climate change and accessibility and underrepresented groups. So Lowell, Massachusetts has low energy efficiency adoption for residents, especially renters and language isolated groups. So energy efficiency is paramount and prepares cities for decarbonization. What are your thoughts on this issue? The state has passed new legislation to combat climate change. What do you plan to do to move the city forward on this issue?
I think the city have adopted a carbon blueprint by 2050.
Oh, I think your internet is cutting out. Paul?
I'm told so, but that's great that you do.
Oh, Paul, are you there? You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. So I think we'll have to switch. But if there's anything last thing that you would like to say, particularly about why people should vote for you tomorrow in tomorrow's preliminary.
I would like to let people know that tomorrow is people can elect a city council live in the neighborhood and the what make me different from others, I believe that because of my experience,
I think he may have frozen.
and then any other. So those are the three. So yeah, these are the priority that that I think that make set me apart from other candidates. Is my practical and to help our neighborhood to be up just like everybody else. Because right now the street need to be taken care of. Well, we need more lights, we need more road, build the potholes and stuff. So we need also a program to support our small businesses. So economic recovery, that's what I'm proud to do. And as a small business owner, I have the experience and I also help other small businesses as well. The same thing with affordable housing, first-time home buyers. I'm helping people, part of my previous job, purchase their own home, including people who live on Section 8 under the low housing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul.
You.
I'll give Paul Ratha Yam a
Thank you.
round of applause.
Yes.
Best of luck tomorrow.
Yeah. My name's number 2 on the ballot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we will turn to our second candidate spotlighted tonight. I'm very pleased to welcome Mayor John Leahy, who has been a friend for for the past year and a half when a lot of things have happened. So Mayor Leahy, I'd like to invite you first to just say a few words. John Leahy is running for City Council in District 3. And remember, in the preliminary tomorrow, I'd like to invite you first to just introduce yourself, to talk about your experiences and priorities around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can you hear us? Mayor Leahy? Oh, he had to, Mayor Leahy? He's putting his headphones on. Mayor Leahy, can you hear us? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, now I can.
There you go.
Yeah.
Welcome. Okay. So we'd like to ask you to just say a few words about yourself, why you're running, and also some of your experiences, track record, and priorities around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay. I'm having a little trouble with the headset, so if it runs out, I'm trying to shut it off so I can hear over the speaker, but for right now, it's working. So, sure, my name's John Leahy, currently serving as the mayor of Lowell and running for another term in District 3 for City Council. And my priorities basically have always been to, it starts in your neighborhood. You want to feel good in your neighborhood. You want to feel comfortable, and it's going to spread out from there. So throughout the city, I want people to come to the city, to move to the city, feel comfortable with where they live, be part of the community, and contribute to the community. So that's always been my platform, and that's why I'm running again. I think we're a good city. I think we're always improving, and I think people here really care about each other, and we're just here to do the right thing. So that's why I'm running again for another seat on the city council.
Mayor,
Sure, go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
You were going to say I should talk about the DEI, right? And what we're doing with that. So this year, as we all know, has been a very difficult year, especially with COVID and everything that's been going on with social justice. So my priority in the next term would be to really engage the full committee, the 11 people, and work together and to come up to make this city a better place to work and live in, and just take a really good hard look at where we are and how we need to improve. So I think that would be step number one, obviously.
Great, thank you. Actually, I was going to say, your first term, your first term as mayor was so uneventful that you decided to, you might as well run for another term. Yeah, nothing happened. So
right.
So I would like to revisit am I sharing? The Racism is a Public Health Crisis letter. And the steps, again, the step one is to promote the commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. Step two being establishing protocols for data equity and integrity. Step three, mandating anti-racism and anti-bias training. Step four, establishing a civilian advisory committee to work with the police. And then step five, establishing an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And it would be great, I think, ahead of tomorrow's, or just ahead of the election in general, if you would reflect on, you brought the motion to the city council last year, and what prompted you to do that? And then, that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question is where you think we've made progress and where we still need to go.
Okay, sure. I'm working with a few of my colleagues. We supported the motion that racism is a public health crisis. And we wanted to acknowledge that, we need to take a good hard look at this. It affects every aspect of our society. It affects people in healthcare and where they purchase their homes and how they make a living and how they, where you want to go to a community to live. And there are inequities that we have to take a look at, and we have to always work together to try to improve this. And to say that these things don't exist still, does it exist? It exists in various stages in different communities, different states. So all we were really trying to say is, look, we're not perfect. This is an issue that the city of Lowell, their residents have brought up to us, and we as the leaders of the community have to take a good, hard look at it and step back, be unbiased about it, and just say, look, we're not perfect, but where do we need to go, and what can we improve on? And sometimes that's difficult because obviously, when you're in a role as a city councilor, as a community leader, a school committee person, you're right in the middle of it, and you're always trying to make the best decisions you can. And sometimes you have to step back from the situation and take a look at it from another angle, from somebody else's perspective. And I think that's what this year especially has shown us, that we need to take the step back and take a look at this. I think in terms of the letter that you just brought up, I think that we're making strides. First, I'll go to the police department did come up with the Citizens Advisory Board, and I watched a couple of the meetings, and I thought that the chief did a good job holding and conducting a couple of the meetings. They had some good conversations. Talked to a few young people that participated, and everybody seemed like it was started out on the right foot, and it was going in a positive direction. And I think the chief, he's wants to do the best job he can for the city of Lowell, and this is something that he's undertook, and I think he's doing a good job with it so far, from what I can see. The manager's office at the start of the budget here this year, well, first of all, we did the audit of the HR department, and we are going to have a DEI office or officer that's in the works now. And I think overall, we're working towards acknowledging that we can do a little bit better here in the city, and we're going to work together, and it's going to make us a better place. It's going to put us in a better place, and it's going to be better for everybody in the community. And as you know, we did take a break from the summer, but we have been having some meetings once or twice a month, going over what priorities we should be looking at, what a task force or a board should look like, and what direction we should be heading in. And I think that, from the start, we said it was going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of understanding on what the makeup should be. And it's really going to be the role of this next 11 councilors coming in to really take the bull by the horns, say, and confront this and take a good, hard, honest look at where we want the city to go.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'd like to follow up question, and this is less, I guess, this is more for you as a candidate and less, that for you as a mayor. But your thoughts on, I'm so glad. I think many people are glad that the city's DEI office is moving forward, right? So I think there's three things that were in the Lowell in the HR audit, and that we have talked about before, that I just would love to see what you think. One is that the HR audit suggested a compensation review, right? Again, just because our compensation, it may not be as competitive. Two, it suggested that it be in that the DEI office or officer report to the city manager and not HR, right? And this is a larger conversation for all institutions about the location of a DEI office and the kind of institutional squeeze that they can find themselves in when they're in HR. And then the third one is the importance of that it not just be one person, right? That even if it's a part-time person, that the danger of even like one full-time person is, obviously a progress, right? But the danger of having one person is that it becomes just that one person, so that one, you need to have multiple people, and then two, there needs to be a culture of it being everyone's responsibility, right? And this is, again, it's not just the city, like every institution or organization is dealing with this. But what are your sort of thoughts on those three recommendations, I guess, or suggestions?
Sure. Compensation. Honestly, we probably have to do that across the board in the city with a lot of departments. This is a very important, this is going to be a very important leadership role for the city, and it should have a competitive salary so that we can attract the most, the best candidates that we can for this position. And the compensation obviously is always very important. And so that we are definitely going to take a look at. We should take a look at it, and that will be something that I know that the council right now does want to take a good hard look at compensation for that role. As far as reporting, yes, it should be a role that reports to city manager and not just HR. And from what I'm hearing, it will be a position that is out of the city manager's office versus being connected with HR and having a seat in the HR office. So we know that has to happen. And as far as not having just one person in that role, yeah, it should be somebody with some sort of an assistant so that they can work together. It's going to be a large task. It's going to be a lot of work in the beginning setting this up. It's going to be a lot of research, and to properly run this office, it should have, if not one, maybe two other people in with the director, I guess, or whatever we want to call the position. But they should have a couple of people that work with them to make sure that we can get this off on the right foot.
Great. Thank you very much. So the next question it's a pre-submitted question, but it's something that has come up, I mean, time and time again. It's about housing. His headset died. So while we're waiting, just remember that to check your, if you want information about, to check, what district you're in, you can go to lowellma.gov/find my district. Also lowellvotes.org has information about voting, including information about all the candidates, the districts, the preliminary votes, the voting locations, all of the above. Let's see, I'm actually share that screen. So as a reminder, tomorrow, the preliminary election is in districts 2, 3, 4, and 7. And if you're unsure about what district you're in, you can go to lowellma.gov/find my district, and you can enter your home address there, and it will tell you what district you're in. And then if you go to lowellvotes.org, Lowell Votes is a nonprofit organization in Lowell that provides information about voting, and they have a voter guide. So they have information on all of the races, municipal races going on currently, and they have information about voting locations, information if you need help voting, all of the above. And I think we're still waiting for.
Okay, I can hear now. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
great. Yes,
All right,
great, great,
sorry
great.
about that.
Oh, no, it's okay. Okay, great, great. So, oh yes. So the next question is about housing. Community Teamwork Inc., a nonprofit in Lowell that helps with housing insecurity. They do the community needs in general. They do a community needs assessment every year, and in this year they found the individual level top need as well as the community level top need is affordable housing, right? And so this is a question, it's one related to income, but it's also because, ethnicity is so co-articulated with income that really impacts people of color disproportionately. So the question is really what, as a city councilor, can you do about to improve the lack of affordable housing in Lowell?
Okay. Well, obviously that's a tough question. We want people to come in and invest in the buildings, invest in the housing market, fix up the houses and rent decent, affordable housing to people. But they're only going to do it if they can get a return on their investment. Maybe there are some more programs we can get together with the state or federal government. One thing, that doesn't help is, when people do come into the city and then they invest in a lot of this housing, on one hand, it's great that we have the university here and the college. On the other hand, they tend to target just the college crowd. And that is what's really hurting the affordable housing market in Lowell. And how do we find that balance? I'm not really sure yet. But I think maybe, we could talk to the university, try to come up with some strategies on housing to see if they are at 100% housing, how much extra housing do they really need? But that's what seems to be driving this right now in the city is, again, on one hand, it's good that students have choice to go from the college dorms to private housing, but on the same hand, it's hurting because they're maxing out the rooms for the maximum rent, and people just are being pushed out of that market. So, I'm not sure. I think right now we try to have that conversation with between the city and the university, and then again, let's see what we can do with the second floor and third floor levels on in our downtown buildings. How do we get people to invest to fix those up? We've got to come up with better permitting issues for them. We've got to come up with easier strategies that they can get in and renovate these buildings because, I guess the big obstruction is having having water suspension systems in the second and third floor. And it's really just not affordable right now for people to come in and put that sprinkler system in and renovate the building and then to charge affordable housing. It just doesn't seem to work with them. So we've got to come up maybe with the state or federal to see if we can help out with some renovation money to get investors to come in, fix up these second floors, these third floors, and then make sure that we get, we can get people affordable housing. We don't want to, the thing that really gets me upset too is, we do have some landlords that come in the city and they do the minimum amount of work and they feel like they're doing their part, but they're not. I mean, we owe the citizens that come into the city clean, affordable housing, and it has to be up to standards. If we wouldn't live in it, then why should anybody else? And that's going to be something that we're going to have to go through with our inspectional department and really focus and work hard on that and make sure that people offer clean buildings for people to live in.
Great, thank you. So the next question is two questions together, but it's about the relationship of the city council to the schools. And this is, again, probably is more for you as a potential city councilor, right? Who may or may not be a mayor, serving on the city council next term. First, what do you think is the responsibility of the city council in supporting the schools, right? And two, I guess related to that is sort of, what are your thoughts on the sort of culturally and linguistically sustainable practices proposal, as well as, the ongoing contract negotiations with teachers, right? So these are just clusters of questions that have come up about the relationship of the city council to the schools.
Yeah, well, it's been frustrating for me. I think the responsibility of the city council to the schools is to maintain the schools, to make sure that we go in and make sure that they kept up in a fashion where we would be proud to have our kids going to the school. And for the most part, the schools are getting older. Everybody, we just built a whole bunch of new schools, but they're 25 years old now. And it's up to the city council to appropriate the money to have the staffing to go in and make sure that we maintain the schools. And unfortunately, we really haven't been able to do that. We need to make sure that we prioritize these. This manager has done a good job as far as bringing back and making sure that we take advantage of all the state money that we can. We've applied for the roofing and for the boilers and windows and things like that. That seemed to have slipped through the cracks over the last few years. When manager Donahue came in, she inquired about this. She started the ball rolling on it again, and we've applied and we've gotten a lot of assistance, and we're waiting to hear from the next round to make sure that the big ticket items, the roofs, the boilers, and things like that are getting fixed. But we do have to come up with a regular schedule to make sure that the bathrooms, the floors, windows, things like that are maintained. And if we don't, we're just going to we can't let these buildings fall down around us. So that's the priority of the city council, to make sure that we put that message out there and to make sure that the city manager knows that we want to maintain our schools properly. And we have to come up with a whole